Hi, this is Mark Grossarth from Heritage Family Credit Union. Heritage Family Credit Union is a proud sponsor of the 2020 Bennington Chamber of Commerce Lunch and Learn series. I hope you find these seminars insightful and educational.
So welcome everybody, welcome to the second Lunch and Learn of the 2020 season for us at the Chamber. My name is Matt Harrington. I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I think a lot of you know that we've recently rebranded to be the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce. So happy to answer any of those questions during our free time if you have any. But without further ado, and I don't want to take too much of your time, we want to introduce Aaron and Wendy from the Department of Labor. They are great partners with us at the Chamber. We were just having a lively discussion about our Stay to Stay program, which I think they're going to talk a little bit more about, but they were there last weekend at Bromley to welcome 40 people into Vermont, and we're very excited about kind of the pipeline of workers that we're creating in that, so I think they're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we thought this would be a great time. One of the biggest concerns we hear, and we do surveying every year, we do, just kind of seeing you on the street and asking you, is employees and the workforce. And so when we were developing the program for this year, we thought it would be very good for us to get on video, on recording, all of Aaron's insights and Wendy's insights about what they do at the Department of Labor, but perhaps more importantly to all our businesses, what they're doing in terms of the workforce. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you. And we just want to thank the Chamber for having us today and you guys for all attending. So thank you. We thought it would be really important to kind of give you a couple of different phases of labor or a couple of different viewpoints of labor. We want to start with really kind of a big macro picture of what Vermont Department of Labor does, and then actually drill that down to what we do both at the local level and then what sorts of initiatives the Department of Labor is taking with both local as well as state level projects. So for a minute, if you could, just think about Department of Labor in terms of sort of this imagery. So I want you to imagine yourself for a minute standing at the very edge of this big, wide open blank field. And way off in the distance, you notice what looks like this little itty bitty teeny tiny little tree. And from the edge of that field, it looks very small and insignificant, like there's not much to it. As you start to walk closer to that tree, you start to notice different things about it. And you start to notice that that tree actually has some branches, and actually it's a little bit bigger than you thought it was. And wow, there's actually like these little leaves, and it's a pretty tree, and it's really a lot more robust than you thought. I always think of Department of Labor in that way, that we're sort of this unknown little tiny tree standing in a big field. But when people start to understand all of the different ways that Department of Labor touches workforce and touches our communities, then that tree seems to be much larger, much more robust. So from sort of that macro level, Department of Labor is actually comprised of lots of different divisions. And we're in something called a Workforce Development Division, and I'll go into a minute. Actually, we will go into a lot about what Workforce Development Division does. And we are really what I like to refer to as the trunk of that tree. We have something called the Wage and Hour Division, which is sort of more of the regulatory side of labor. And that is really where our minimum wage and all of our wage and hour laws, both state and federal, are they sort of sit and they're sort of watched through our wage and hour division. We have an unemployment division, and our unemployment division really is the division that helps with economic stability. So somebody who experiences a job loss, whether through termination or through layoff, could access our unemployment division and get benefits that helps them stabilize their economic prospects while they try to transition to new employment. We also have a workers' comp division, and workers' comp division, very similar to wage and hour. They're the ones that really try to ensure and enforce the workers' comp laws. So all employers that are employing individuals should be carrying workers' comp on all of their workers, and so that's the resource for that. We have a fiscal division within labor, and our fiscal division manages all of the various funding sources that come into labor. So we have a variety of federal funds that come into the state of Vermont that really financially support a lot of our programs and services in the field. We also have state funds that come in through that as well. And so our fiscal division processes all of that stuff, and they're pretty robust. We also have something called VOSHA, which is the Vermont Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and this is very similar to OSHA, where it's really sort of the safety side of the workplace. And then we also have something called Project WorkSafe, and what a lot of people don't realize in Project WorkSafe is Project WorkSafe is actually where you as an employer are inviting the state of Vermont in to sort of work with you to troubleshoot any sort of safety concerns that you may have on the job. Because a lot of employers, the last thing they want to do is to see their workers' comp rates raise by having an unsafe work environment. So Project WorkSafe goes in, and then there's absolutely no penalty to the employer. If Project WorkSafe finds some sort of potential safety hazard, Project WorkSafe will work with that employer in helping to remediate that so that workers are kept safe. And then we also have an Economic Labor Market Information Division. We call it ELMI, or LMI. And we're actually going to go into a lot more detail about that as we go through. Within the Workforce Development Division, so those are all sort of the little branches and the leaves of our tree. Within Workforce Development, being that trunk, we actually touch, just like a trunk of a tree would, we touch all of those divisions. We provide information to all of those divisions, and we actually receive information from them too. And we work with both employers and job seekers with that. So we actually, with that said, in the workforce development side of the house, or the tree, we do work with 100% of the population, whether somebody is highly skilled, high degree, lots of work experience, professional, or somebody who's low skilled and is really just entering the workforce and maybe doesn't have any sort of formal credentials, might not even have a high school diploma or a GED. So we work with 100% of the population. In fact, very often in our world, Erin could work with somebody who has that advanced degree and is highly professional through the state of stay, which we'll talk about. And then the next person that he's working with is somebody who might not even have their high school diploma or a GED. So we really do start with people where they are. There's two very distinct demographic populations we work with. We work with job seekers, as I said, but we also work with employers. And they're really two distinct customer groups that actually end up working together through our workforce development division. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who can talk more about how our services work in the field office. And please feel free to ask questions at any point.
Yeah, this is the part of the presentation where you're probably going to need to get a coffee or a Red Bull or something, because he's the exciting one. I'm the one that's going to put you to sleep. But no, we were really excited when Matt asked us to join, because I feel like one of our biggest crutches is that not enough people know about us, what's available to them, especially employers. So I think I want to walk through and kind of explain how our system works at the American Job Center here in Bennington, and how that can best benefit you as an employer, or if you're a job seeker watching at home. I'll find somebody nice that you can meet with in our office, and they're great. So what happens in our office? First of all, we're located in 200 Veterans Memorial Drive. We're over in the state office building. Everybody gets that, hey, you're in the courthouse? We're not the courthouse. We're on the first floor. We're nowhere near them. Don't worry about that little safety check that they put you through going in. It's all fun and games. But so when somebody comes in, typically they come in thinking that we're the unemployment office. So they walk in and they say, "You wouldn't believe what my employer did to me. It was so unfair. I'm unemployed. I want my check." Okay, cool. That doesn't happen necessarily in our office, but what we would do is bring somebody back in, get their story, and figure out what they want. And I think that's what's great about my job, is it's super flexible in the fact where I don't have to run people through a lot of things that are unnecessary. It's truly, if you come in and ask that question about unemployment, I'm going to give you that, but I'm going to ask you a lot of questions too about what else are you looking for? How can we train you? Here's some employers that are there. So we do tons of assessments of skills and interests. A lot of times people walk in and they say, "I don't know what I want to do next, but I know I never want to do that again." it happens. I was fine working there, it paid the bills, but it's never been something I wanted to do. Well, what do you want to do? We have very honest conversations with people. We talk about, ideally we'd love to find your dream job and get you paid as much money as possible, but that's not always the case. So a lot of times we're trying to tease out, what are the things that you liked about that last position? Was it because you were always working as part of a team and it was a super group-oriented place, or was it because, hey, you got to work from home on Fridays, cut down on daycare costs? Like, we want to find out those reasons that get you excited. Obviously, we know a paycheck is important. We're not naive to that fact. However, there's so much more in assessing that next position that we want to help you with. Exploring occupations, it's a large part of what I do. I mean, as much as we're contacting employers, we know what's on Indeed.com, we know what's on Monster.com. We're checking Facebook more and more because we've seen employers in town have a lot of success. I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but I've called you, Lisa, and said, hey, and you're like, we're just getting so many hits, and we don't want to shake that method if it works for you. What we want to know is how we can support you as employers locally. So we're always trying to find out where those hidden job markets are that aren't just, hey, this is the Bennington Banner, this is what everybody reads, this is what everybody sees. There's so much more out there. Economic and labor market information and employment trends. So like Wendy was saying, we have a labor market division that specifically focuses on all of that statistical data. I look at it and I cry. It's bar graphs, it's numbers and stuff that I don't understand, but we use it a lot. If we're going to retrain somebody, we want to make sure there's a great outlook on that field. We're not going to train you to become a VCR repairman because VCRs aren't around anymore. We want to make sure that it's something that's trending, that there's going to be jobs available, and that you're going to make a decent wage. We use a lot of that labor market information for those types of things. Obviously, it's very complex. There's a lot to it. It's really neat because you can break it down into your labor market. So if I have a person who's looking to become a carpenter, I always talk, what do you expect to be paid? Well, if I Google it, it says I could make $27 an hour. Well, that's a national average. We want you to look at the VTLMI site, see what a carpenter in Bennington makes, because that's going to make your negotiation process a lot more realistic. It's not going to say, if I go in and talk to Breadloaf today, I might go over there and say, hey, I want $27 an hour. I saw it online. They're going to say, hey, good luck. It's just not going to happen. I need to be tactical and use that to my advantage. So we always encourage that. There's a variety of educational and training opportunities that come through our office. We're going to hit on those after some great federal retraining programs that we really take advantage of, and we've seen some excellent skill development out of. So I'm going to have Wendy touch on that. She's the expert there. And hiring events. So we do multiple hiring events over the course of the year. So many people come into our office and say, I just want to shake somebody's hand. I want to talk to a human being. And they're stuck behind these online applications and assessments. People aren't talking. Their resume is getting sent somewhere. They may or may not get a call back. We don't like that either. We like the face-to-face. We like a warm handoff. So we try to facilitate that through hiring events. We do 2 major hiring events per year. Both are held at the Firehouse on River Street. It's your traditional 30 employers at the top of the Firehouse waiting for people to walk through. And believe it or not, we've had the biggest struggle recently of getting job seekers at those events and not employers. So we actually feel like we're letting employers down when we have one of those events and 50 people come or 60 people come. We want people there to have those conversations face to face with the people that make the hiring decisions, because you can tell so much from a handshake, from the presentation, from the resume, things like that. Over the course of the year, we have multiple hiring events in our office. If a place like the U.S. Census is in our office all the time trying to pick a bulk up. We've got Daly's in our office right now who's ramping up for the spring. We don't make people wait for one of those hiring events. If you've got a need, if you need 6 people now, we're not going to make you wait until April. We're going to get the ball going. Our next major hiring event is Friday, April 24th from 11 to 2 at the Bennington Firehouse. So job seekers, employers, if you are interested in presenting, that's when the next one will be. Feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to help you with that. Like I said, if you guys are asleep now, I'll clap or something.
And if I can just, so even with the job fairs, even though we may not have, droves of people coming into the job fair like we do when the unemployment rate is super high, I mean, it's completely free, and if you can at least access 50 to 60 job seekers in a matter of a couple of commitment, it's probably more than you're doing with all of these other, ways that you might be connecting or trying to recruit for potential employees.
Mm-hmm. So we have a website called Vermont JobLink.com, and that's kind of we use it for multi-purposes. But when we approach an employer, let's go back. So I started about 7 years ago, and the economy was terrible. There were no jobs. People with bachelor's level degrees weren't getting callbacks on entry level positions at a grocery store. It was just impossible to get people work. So it was easy for us to take employers' positions and list them, because what we promise is that we will pre-screen people. You tell us what you need, we're not going to send you somebody unless they meet that criteria, which was great at a time like that, because hey, the employer says we need 3 years experience and a commercial driver's license. I can't send you over there, but let's find you something else. Nowadays, when we contact employers, they're saying, send people. We need bodies. We need to talk to human beings. So that is totally flipped for us. But I still think we hold true to that in the event that an employer lists with us. We want to make sure that we're sending you the client that you're looking for. And if they don't exactly meet those needs, we would love to be able to have those conversations offline to say, hey, I know you're looking for a front desk person, but we've had success with waitresses in the past because they can think so quickly on their feet. They're extremely good problem solvers. They can divert. We want to have those kind of conversations, so so we can go back and say, here's a couple people that didn't quite fit your bill, but we think might be a benefit to your company. Let us know. So that's kind of one of the strengths of Vermont JobLink. The LMI website, vtlmi.info. Check it out. Great statistical data, especially for your labor market area. We use other websites like ONET to gauge people when they come in, especially young people. When they say, I want to work, I know I need to work, but I just don't know what I want to do. We'll run them through some of those inventories, asking them questions, not so they leave and say, hey, you're going to be a plumber. It's so they leave and say, all right, I've identified that I like working individually, I like working outside. It's a great place to start that conversation. At the very least, we want people to know that they can utilize our office. We have the internet, we have computers always available, we provide resume paper, we do all of the nuts and bolts that we don't need to pay other businesses to do, and we can handle that in our office. Mm-hmm. So there's different levels of staff in our office. Wendy is a regional manager, so she is in charge of Bennington, Rutland, and Middlebury. She's in our office a couple days a week. If her boss is watching, she's always where she's supposed to be. But for the most part, she's kind of on that top level, making sure all of our programs are running fantastically. When you come into our office, you'll probably be greeted by a job center specialist. So that's somebody who can be that initial point of contact and be the person who says, why don't you come in and have a little conversation behind closed doors and let's see where you're at. And like I said before, I love my job because I don't have to make people do things they don't want to. If they come in and they say, hey, I've got this resume, will you take another look at it? Yeah, wow, you did a fantastic job. Who did that? I'm going to get mine done by that person. But what we do is we're going to say, hey, this looks good, or change this. Cool. We may never hear from that person again, and that's all right. Other people come in and it's just, let's start at ground zero. Let's get a weekly meeting set up. Let's get you comfortable going to apply for those positions that you want. Part of my job as a job center specialist is to be able to recognize other things, through various questions about what else they could potentially be eligible for. Whether that's a service that we have internally, whether it's a partner. We share an office with Vermont Vocational Rehabilitation. If we notice things that trigger a referral to Voc Rehab, we love to share. We love to partner with whoever is in the community, and we'll kind of talk about some of our community partners after. We have a LVER, a Veterans Reemployment person in our office. His name is Don White. His job is to find employers that are looking to hire veterans. So in our office, veterans get priority of service regardless. That we pride ourselves in taking care of veterans first. It's the mission of the department. And Don's job is to find employers that want veterans. And a lot do, because there's a lot of soft skills that come along with that. We typically don't get a lot of resistance in that field. People say, if you've got veterans, send veterans. We want great people. But there's more to that program as well. We have a person out of Rutland named Matt Mesha, who is a DIVA, which stands for?
Disabled Veterans Outreach Placement.
I knew that, I just didn't know if she did, so that was good. Basically, Matt's job is to find people, to assist people, veterans who have a disability or an occurrent barrier to employment. So his service can be a little bit deeper. So I don't want to get too much into that, but if you are a veteran or if you're a spouse of a veteran, please reach out, because there's systems in place to help you, and we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of everything that you need. We also have a program in our office called ICANN, and I'm going to let Wendy kind of talk about ICANN a little bit.
Yeah, so ICANN stands for the Individualized Career Assistance Network. And essentially what ICANN does is it really supports individuals who are receiving 3 squares benefits or food stamps. And so the collaboration is around a bunch of community partners that work with this individual. Provides all these wraparound services so that that individual can move into some sort of career pathway and hopefully never need food stamps again. That's the whole idea behind ICANN. It is a specialized program, and we do have case management in the Department of Labor office, and that program also comes with some financial resources that helps individuals remove those barriers. The other advantage to ICANN is if somebody can also participate in something called the WIOA program, or Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and that is a federal retraining program. And there are individuals that are participating in ICANN that are also dually enrolled in WIOA for yet additional assistance. There are things that WIOA could fund, for example, occupational skills training, certifications, licenses, that cannot be necessarily funded under the ICANN program. WIOA.
Since you're there already, why don't you just
I know,
keep
I can just go right into that. So WIOA, a lot of acronyms. We love acronyms at Department of Labor. So what that program is that is a federally funded retraining program with the aim of providing the services to eligible individuals that helps them overcome any sort of barrier that they may have to either entering the workforce initially or re-entering the workforce. There's actually 3 funding streams under WIOA. The first funding stream is on the adult side, and so this would largely be individuals who are financially eligible based on their family size. So somebody who may be a single parent with 10 kids and is not cutting it on a minimum wage job would definitely be eligible for retraining under this. And the idea in that case, this is an individual who's working and has skills, but in that case it would be helping that person upgrade their skills so that they can provide a better financial stability situation for their family. So these aren't necessarily individuals that have no jobs. These are individuals that could benefit from upgrading skills as well. Another funding stream under that is as a dislocated worker. So somebody who lost their job to no fault of their own, and is finding themselves unlikely to return to their previous occupation because maybe that occupation is no longer in demand. VCR repair person might be somebody who would be a dislocated worker because nobody's buying VCRs anymore. And that person, we would look at that marketable skill set, and then we would say, okay, so yep, we agree. You are definitely struggling because your skill set is no longer in demand, and then what we can do is we can provide some assistance in helping them upskill or retrain so that they can re-enter the workforce. Years ago, I worked with this program as a case manager. Just to give you an example of some of the things we used to do, I worked with an engineer once, and this was when the economy was really bad. So somebody was an engineer, they were laid off from their job as an engineer, and what they were finding was they were running into a block trying to get back into the workforce because they didn't have AutoCAD. When they got their engineering degrees, before AutoCAD was part of the normal curriculum for their degree. And so what we were able to do was actually fund a couple of AutoCAD classes for him so he could develop that skill, and as soon as he got that skill, he was able to return to the workforce as an engineer. So that just gives you an example of what the dislocated worker side is. We also work with youth, and the WIOA program really assists youth 14 to 24. Yep, the definition goes all the way up to 24. And
up to 34.
Sometimes, absolutely. And what that program does is it really assists youth or young folks or emerging workforce in developing those good work readiness skills right from the get-go. And it really helps them identify career pathways. And there's a variety of different ways that we do that. But the WIOA program is a great way for individuals to gain access to some skill building. But it's also a great way, particularly now, for employers to actually work with individuals and helping them become really great employees for you. So right now could very well be some mismatches with skill set that an applicant may have to what you may be looking for. And a great program to take advantage of now through this is something called OJT, or on-the-job training. And this is essentially where there is that skill gap and you wouldn't necessarily hire this person, But hey, Department of Labor on this person's behalf is going to negotiate a training contract with you so that we're going to reimburse you a percentage of that person's wages while they're in that training period. So it really helps offset the exorbitant costs of training somebody that you wouldn't necessarily take a chance on. So that program is really great on the employer side too.
Totally. You're probably wondering where we meet all of these dislocated workers. So naturally, people will come into our office. Like I talked about before, they'll come in and say, "Hey, I'm unemployed. Help. What do I do?" But one service that we offer through our office and through statewide that I'm pretty proud of is our rapid response team. And essentially, what happens is when a business decides they're going to close doors or move or something along those lines, we hope, and now you should call us first, because what we'll do is we'll come in, we'll bring a couple representatives from our office, we'll bring somebody from unemployment, and we talk to your workforce. We can host at our place, we can come to your place. We typically do it on like a lunch break or something that doesn't affect the flow of business. And what we do is we come in as a liaison for those people who will be affected. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell them how to get hooked up with unemployment, tell them about all of these programs, try to encourage them to come down and work with us because we want to upskill them. We see so many people in Bennington who work at a small firm, and they started off as the front desk person, and next thing you know, 20 years later, they're the accountant, they're the digital marketing person. They've got all of these hats. They're out applying for jobs that are requiring an industry certified or an industry recognized credential. Well, we know they can do the job. They've been doing a fantastic job. Let us help you button that up and get you that little piece so you can go out and make the money that you should, and you can, and be proud of that. So our rapid response team, I think, does a pretty good job of at least getting out in the field and explaining to people, come see us, you're not alone. It can be a confusing journey. Let us walk you through it. Okay.
Yeah, and the other side of that too is our experience is that the last thing employers ever want to do is lay somebody off. It's not why you get into business in the first place. And we fully recognize that too. The other side of rapid response is layoff aversion. So before you get to that point, if you're starting to see some fluctuations, or maybe it's a staffing solution issue, maybe you can't produce something that you really need to produce because you don't have the workforce to do it. There may be ways for us to even network staffing solutions as part of layoff aversion. So before you have to, hit that button and start laying people off, let's figure out a different way to help you out and manage that fluctuation so you don't ever get to the layoff.
Cool. One more thing I wanted to touch on, especially that's been getting a lot of buzz lately, is the apprenticeship program, the state of Vermont's apprenticeship program. I think there's a big push right now. We recognize that the people in the trades are an aging demographic in this community, and we recognize that there's concern here, like who's going to come as an electrician, as a plumber, as an HVAC person. And so we have an apprenticeship coordinator. Her name is Rebecca Danzero. She's actually housed in the Rutland office. But she comes down to Bennington to meet with employers and with people, because an apprenticeship is essentially a work and learn at the same time. We love the apprenticeship model because people are, we're always encouraging young people, but people of any age can come in and learn a trade, not take out a ton of debt. They're getting paid while they do it. They gain on-the-job experience. They leave with a credential. It just makes sense. But it's a partnership. So there's the state is involved, the employer is involved, and the apprentice is involved. There's a lot of moving parts. Our coordinator, our office, we want to make sure that if somebody's going through that program, they're doing the schooling piece that they need, so they leave with that credential that they initially signed up for. We would love to talk about this more because there is so much more coming down the pipeline. I mean, I think we see a lot more trades becoming apprenticeable. Everybody thinks of the plumber and the electrician, but the Vermont State Police is an apprenticeship model at this point. Childcare is going to the apprenticeship model, and we're huge fans of that, and we can't talk enough about it. So if any employers out there do have questions about what it looks like to take on an apprentice or making their type of position apprenticeable, definitely reach out, because we'd love to connect you. On our website, the labor.vermont.gov, we have a list of the apprenticeable trades already in Vermont. However, I've had discussions with folks, and the state is flexible enough where if another state has curriculum, we will adopt that. So nothing's off the table. I don't think there's any reason not to have a conversation about it. I'm kind of going to buzz through this piece, but I think employers can utilize this too. But for job seekers, we have a series of workshops. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m. there's a different workshop. And we try to do a variety of different things to prepare people to apply at your businesses. But the first one is job search in the 21st century. So we get so many people who've been at a place for 10 years, they lose that position. They say, I'm going to go to the next mill and I'll shake somebody's hand and I'll be started by Monday. And we hope that happens. But we know that with the online application process and with other people being involved, this takes a little bit longer. You can be unemployed for 3 or 4 weeks, even if you do get somebody to commit just to, yeah, we'll take you. So we want to teach people how to look for work again, where to look for work again, what are the most effective techniques, where are the hidden job markets, places that you can look that not everybody is looking, how you can be proactive with your resume. So that's one of the big things that we do in our office. We also do a resume resources workshop. Obviously, that's a critical document. We want to make sure that everybody has one, but we also want to make sure that employers are seeing those skills that in the reason that you're applying for that position. We're not going to sit down and do your resume for you and say this or say that. We want you to feel comfortable with that document. We want you to walk into that document in front of the employer and feel comfortable with every single line that's on there and be able to talk about it. Is it an accurate snapshot of what you can offer an employer? That's a big piece for us. Obviously, that leads to our interview workshop, because that wonderful resume that we produce in our office will automatically lead you to an interview every time. 100%. So we do a really good job, because people hate interviews in general. I mean, we just see a group of people that, some people when they get really nervous, they talk too much. That's me, and they share everything, and they talk about like cats that they don't even have or whatever. Other people just turn into the yep, nope, yep. Neither one is good. You know, a lot of times that makes it very uncomfortable for the employer as well. And we try to get people to understand this is a conversation. This is as much for you as it is for them. You're going to be the one who's going to work 40 hours a week. We want you to make sure that it's a comfortable place. So let's not talk about all that other stuff. Let's kind of keep this focused on what that employer is looking for and how you can benefit them. So we love the interview workshop. And finally, we do a career exploration workshop, where this is for people who might really be looking at that total career change. And I think it's so easy to say, hey, I'm unemployed now. If I get my commercial driver's license, I'll make $20-something an hour. I'll be able to feed my family. Makes sense. Did you think about the fact that, you know, your kids are in daycare while you're doing this program, and there's no income coming in, and your unemployment's run out? We want to make sure that you have a comprehensive plan. If we put you in a plan, it's to be successful. Obviously, we don't want to spend a ton of money if it's not going to be successful, but we don't want you to waste your time if it's not something that's feasible. So we want to make sure that all of our bases are covered, and I think that career exploration workshop is a good place to start with that. I think we should jump ahead a little bit to our aging demographic, because I think that's what people really want to talk about.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So that trunk of that tree is pretty robust, right? It's pretty big. It's pretty plump. So we're kind of going back to more of the macro level. And does anybody have questions before I jump into this part?
I have a quick question. So when you were talking about the gaps when people come in, and then between the employers and the employees, I personally experience a lot of that gap has to do with, okay, I like a person, they like us, but they can't get to us, like the transportation issue, or they live too far and there's no way they can move where we are. Do you see that gap often being an issue?
Definitely. Yeah, transportation is definitely an issue. We live in a rural community, as we all know, and though we do have public transportation, access to public transportation isn't as robust as it would be if we were more metropolitan and, you know, in a city. We do find transportation is a barrier.
We've had times where it was really bad, and we've had employers, especially in the Manchester area, who have started their shifts based on Green Mountain Express's drop off and pickup. We know it's not ideal, and that's what we have that conversation with business. We're not asking you to change. We understand you have deadlines and things like that, but if that's going to get you 15 or 20 more employees from Bennington, is it worth it? I mean, those are the kind of conversations that we love to have. It's always going to be a struggle for Bennington folks to get to Manchester. It always has been. I think it always will be. But I think the people that have been successful have done things like that, worked around the bus schedule, or found ways to incorporate, like, you know, I have to drop my kid off at school. I can't get up there, tack on the half an hour drive. I don't even apply for that job because that's sometimes an unrealistic ask. So if we were able to have those conversations and maybe say, hey, is there something that you're missing? What are the time ranges? You know, that's potentially something that we can work with.
Yeah, I know that there has been groups of, and this isn't just isolated to here, I mean, this happens all over the state, but there has been groups of folks that have been working with VTrans to try to figure out creative solutions around the transportation issue, because it impacts every community.
Yeah, I think we can beat down Brian Maroney's door at Green Mountain Express and put this on him. And no, but these are totally the conversations we want to have, especially with employers, because that's that's what's going to get it done here. So I mean, if there is something, I'd be happy to facilitate a meeting with them. Basically, that's my way of saying I probably won't be able to fix it, but let's get you in front of the people who can, and or come up with a solution together. So that would be ultimately the goal, I think, for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we go into like so what's the state of the workforce?
This is the fun stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that I'm excited to talk about. Not this part so much, but like we've got a lot of cool things going on with like young people in the area, and we've got a lot to brag about, I think.
Yeah, so, you heard definitely the micro level, what we do in the field and how our services work and how we, work with both populations, job seekers and employers. But now I want to go into sort of what's happening with workforce trends and what's happening both at the state level as well as this local community level and what we're doing to help address those trends or reverse those trends. So you probably all have heard that there's an aging demographic in Vermont. I think the average age of Vermont's workers now 44. So Vermont is a state that has an average age. It's quite higher than some other states. So that's nothing new. We know that. We also have a declining labor force participation rate, and so basically what that means is that as folks that have the ability to work, they're actually choosing not to work. And this is across all demographics. It's across genders, it's across age, and that is forecasted to continue to decline. And that's not unique to Vermont. That's actually a national trend as well. So that just means that people are not staying in the labor force. They have the ability to work, they can work, but they just stop looking for work. And that stop looking for work could be for several different reasons. It could be that because of childcare, they're staying home to raise family because childcare is so expensive. It may be that they're staying in school longer. We've got a pretty highly educated population. So it could be that. It could be that they're figuring out other ways to survive. There's lots of different reasons why somebody may disengage from the labor force. And so that is declining. As we all know, we've talked about it, our unemployment rate is super low right now. It's actually historically low. We're at 2.3% for the state right now, and that's based on December's numbers. The new March numbers will be coming out March 16th. So next week we're a little bit late.
This could have been planned
yeah,
better than
yeah,
that.
that's okay.
We'll come back.
But if you wanted to know what the latest unemployment rate is, the press release will come out, and you can go right to the lmi.info, Vermont
Yes, that'll be
lmi.info, right, website. You can also link to it right through the labor.vermont.gov, but all of the latest press releases right on the top of that main page. Bennington's unemployment rate's 3.2%. So Bennington historically stays a little bit higher than the state average, which is fine, it's to be expected, but 3.2% is really, really low. I've been doing this work for over 18 years and I've never seen the unemployment rate this low. Nationally, we're still lower than the national rate, which is at 3.5%. So the economy's great, right? Means the workforce is really, really tight. What does that mean for Bennington? That means that right now at a 3.2%, there's about 340 people that are jobless, that are collecting unemployment benefits, and that are actually actively looking for work, as a percentage of the total labor force numbers. The other problem that we have in Vermont, and this is definitely true of Bennington, is that our workforce numbers have been relatively stagnant. Bennington is considered what we call a micronecta, which is it's a very small data set as compared to labor market areas that have a lot of towns go into them, or the metropolitan, which is really the Burlington area. But micronecta here just means that we've got about 6 towns that factor into our labor force numbers, and that's based on geographic commutable patterns. The towns that are in our micronecta are Bennington, Glastonbury, Pownell, Shasberry, Woodford, and we actually share Stamford with North Adams. So we have about 11, just under 11,000 here. Manchester, which is a labor market area, there's 18 towns that go into those labor force numbers, and they're also about 11,000. So I like to make that comparison that when you're looking at labor force numbers and you're like, wow, why is Bennington so small and Manchester is the same size? It isn't, because you've got to compare apples to apples. And these micronectas are much smaller towns, and LMAs are much larger, lots of towns that factor into them. So what are we doing as a state? So as a state, we're really trying, and our priority is really labor force expansion, and we do that in a number of different ways. And Erin's going to talk about some of the really cool things that we're doing at the local level, but labor force expansion, if we can't, our labor force is pretty stagnant, we have to figure out other ways to pull labor force in, right? We have to figure out ways to pull labor force out, so people that are sort of here as part of our demographic already, but just are not actively working or not engaged in the labor force, we have to figure out ways to pull them in. At the same time, we have to figure out ways to relocate people into the state. And so we also are focusing on sort of the youth side of it as well. And statistically, and this is from our LMI chief, Matt Barowitz, what he says is that youth or young people that engage in work early, so they get that job when they're in high school, for example, they're actually more likely to stay engaged in the labor force throughout their lifetime. So somebody who starts at 25 and gets in the labor force may not be as attached to labor force as they are when they're 14, 15, 16 getting that first job. So that's an important trend that we're trying to reverse too. Great thing about these forecasts is that they're forecasts. So they're not written in stone. All of this stuff can be changed. And I'm optimistic that we can really influence it. And I think we are, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I know
Yep.
it's early, but we'll
Yep.
get back to that. And I think I'm really excited because I just got back from one of the state-to-state weekends. And I'm going to butcher the description of how state-to-state works. But essentially, it's a program through the chamber here in, statewide. But Matt and his team do a really good job of identifying those folks who are potentially interested in relocating to Vermont, bringing them here, letting them experience an actual Vermont weekend. And the most recent one was nothing short of successful. I mean, I think there were around 30 people who were standing in this building on a Monday morning after their weekend saying, we're ready to move to Vermont. There's nothing else needs to be done except I need a job. Get me the job and we're moving. And you're so happy when you hear that, because we see all the stuff that goes on social media, and people just, there's nothing, there's never anything, nobody is doing anything. And here's a group of 30 professionals saying, I'll do whatever it takes, I'll take less money, I will work harder, I want to raise my family in Vermont, which is great. So, we leave on this high, and I'm excited, and then I get back and I've got these resumes of all of these professional people. This is where we need the employers to kind of jump out and say, what do you have, or who's looking? Because these are skilled people, but they're also realistic people. They're coming in understanding that their wages might be different here than in New York City or in Los Angeles, but they're willing to make a change for quality of life. Sitting on my desk right now, I've got an accountant, I've got a process engineer. We've got so many people just ready, and I'm thinking, I try to distribute them to HR professionals and say, hey, share with your friends, but we want employers looking for these people. I think I talk to the people, and I'm like, Vermont is still small enough where when somebody applies and they have an address in Texas, I think as an HR professional, you might look at that and say, what's this all about? Or, what a waste of time, I'm not going to drive them all the way out here, or even Skype with them because they're not going to move for this job. However, these could be those state-to-state people who are saying, please, I just want to get out here. Let me get into your company. So just know that we do have a large pool of those right now, and they're incredibly successful people with a great skill set that can be utilized in Vermont. So we would totally like to share all those. I'll let you get back to yours. But
Yeah, no, and actually, I think you wanted to say something, didn't you, Matt?
Do I?
No? Oh, I thought you were like,
No.
no? Okay.
I think we had a good weekend. We have 4 more lined up. I think what we're discovering in year 3 is if we can make industry specifics on certain weekends. So this last one was more of a generic one, which was more about if you like to ski in like winter in Vermont, come out to Vermont, and we'll still kind of pair you with jobs. The one in June will be around startup, small business, and entrepreneurs. So our partnership with the state digitally tracks and markets to these individuals in the United States that show interest in those certain industries, but have also some sort of linkage to Vermont. So whether they've Googled Vermont, visited Vermont, skied Vermont, have kids, they were a kid when they came to Vermont. Now in this day and age with LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, we can kind of track those people. And so the state, as a partner, kind of works with them as they're going through their digital life to encourage them on this weekend. So the next weekend will be, as I said, the Entrepreneur Weekend. In July, we will do a healthcare weekend. In September, we'll go back to recreation and do a bike weekend, so a bicycle weekend, both in the North Shire and the South Shire with 2 of our partners there. And then the final one, which I see a couple around the room right now, the final one in October will be on hospitality. So service, customer service, cooks, bed dressers, whatever our hospitality industry needs, which we heard last year when the DOL came down for capital for a day. So again, just a good example to Aaron's point of we're hearing things and we're trying to match them, and it may take a year, but we do hear from our hospitality members the most in our chamber of the lack of skilled workers. So
Matt, would you welcome employers to a state-to-state weekend if we were able to identify that there was going to be a group of 5 or 10 people and an employer expressed interest? Would it be okay to invite them to a
absolutely
breakfast Monday morning?
That's the point. And so traditionally we do a Friday night gathering where employers are welcome to meet with potential employees, and we do a Monday morning one, and that all depends whether we're in the North Shire or the South Shire, but usually we try and do something at the chamber one of those times. And I know Lynn Green and the Four Chimneys have opened up their spot to welcome people on Friday, and Bromley opened up last weekend, and we've had stuff at the end of Manchester. So we've used our partners to kind of really give them that, like, if that's their first day in Vermont, we want them to be wowed by not just the community, but also where we're connecting and they can imagine themselves. So absolutely employers, and I know we've worked with you guys more so than in the past about making that connection.
So, and that is a great sort of segue into, that's a state initiative. So the Governor's Office has provided or charged Department of Labor with making those employment connections to individuals that are looking to relocate into Vermont, and it's through the Vermont Relocation Assistance Program that Labor is starting to roll out this year. Actually, we're rolling it out now, actively as we speak.
It's rolling.
So we are, we're going to be sort of the point of contact for individuals that are looking to relocate to the employer community. So, and that's a partnership. So we need employers who are also interested in making that connection back. But you know, as Aaron said, these are great individuals. People that have great skill sets. So that's
is there a place where we can see those resumes?
We were just Matt and I were just, and Wendy were just talking before of like what the best way to compile that group is. So if somebody called from a bank and said, hey, this is what we're looking for, we could even tailor that to, here's the 4 or 5 people that might be
Right. Because right now we don't have a position, but say you have a commercial lender that applies or a credit analyst, those are hard positions to fill. So even if we didn't have an open position, it may be something we'd consider adding, knowing that 2 years from now somebody's going to retire. We'll get that person in now.
Totally. And those are the conversations. I think Vermont is still small enough where it's going to be me talking to Lisa and writing that down and sharing it with the team and then saying, let's come back to that.
And that's why it has actually worked. I think the Stay to Stay is this kind of magical program that works. I think sometimes we're down on ourselves because we are so small. When we do have people here and I'm able to connect them one-on-one, and they're from New York City or for San Francisco or wherever, their mind is blown that they've met 25 people, 3 of them are going to be their neighbors, 1 of them's their select board member, and oh, by the way, you met your employer and 2 staff people there. And like Vermont Country Store is a good example that just happened this past weekend. You know, so let's use what we have as a strength of ours, which is our community and our interweb, to get those people here. It is one of the feedback we get most often about it, that it was such a intimate experience is the word they keep using.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say for now, the state is in the process of sort of developing a sort of a tracking mechanism on a database and how to share that. And I do believe that in the very near future, there will be some sort of tool that rolls out that may make that, connection a little bit easier and accessible. But absolutely, for now, just connect to, Erin, connect to our office. And
even
we'll
just hearing
help
that there
those.
is interest,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to spur. Okay,
Definitely.
Lisa's on the list. I'm going to call her
Yep.
Monday and say, hey,
Yep.
we didn't have anybody for you, but
Yeah.
at least we can keep that open line of communication, and it's totally doable for everybody.
And I would also mention that start now, because some of these people take 2 years
Yeah.
to make that decision, to make the move. We have people that decide in a month.
Sure.
I've had somebody write the resignation letter on their flight down, handed it in, and got back up here. That is rare, and it was great that it happened once or twice. Majority of these people are a year, 2 years out. We've begun to ask them on a Likert scale, kind of where are they at in their move or interest to move. And so that gives us a good. And there are a lot of them are coming in around 6 or 7. So a job at the bank might be the push they need, but they may need another year. So I would say meet them now and then start to build that relationship. And that gives you time, Lisa, and others to work with your team to build that position
Right.
if you need that.
Yeah, it's funny because I've done in my role I've done a lot of hiring, and up until a couple of years ago, when all of these sort of stay to stay and we're sort of completely rethinking about what labor force expansion means, I'm not sure I would really consider somebody who might have an address from California. I might be like, in fact, I know I said this. Why did we get into, was this a mistake? So you start to think about those things. But now that there's a lot more, I know, right? Missed opportunities. But now that there's a lot more sort of thought process around labor force expansion, and that this is a tool and a mechanism to allow somebody to do that, I know for sure I'm thinking differently. I just filled a position this past fall in my Rutland office, and I had probably 12, 13 applicants that were from outside the area. Some of them I'll interview via Skype. I'm not sure I would have done that 2 or 3 years ago, but now I do. And then those that just didn't have the right skill set, we're actually outreaching to, because now we understand that they probably really are interested in relocating to Vermont. So it's a completely different mind shift on that, which is great. The other thing I wanted to just touch on from a state perspective is apprenticeship expansion. So another one of the governor's priorities is by 2023, he wants to double the amount of apprentices, registered apprentices in the state of Vermont. And right now we're around 1,600. So doubling that would be closer to the 4,000 mark in a very, very short period of time. And it's not just doubling the amount of people that are actively engaged in apprenticeship. It's actually really expanding those occupations that offer apprenticeship. As Erin said, we currently have skilled trades, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. We also have law enforcement with the state and police. There's a few different healthcare. We actually have a local one here that is EMT, and it is very unique to Bennington right now. But hopefully that gets expanded around the state. We also have apprenticeship in childcare and manufacturing as well. So there's a lot more occupations and industry sectors that could benefit from apprenticeship expansion. And then the other thing that we are very, very heavily involved in, and this is more of a community level, is Bennington County Workforce and Education. I don't know if anybody's heard about it, but Workforce and Ed is a committee, and it's a very, very strong committee of a bunch of volunteers. There's all sorts of representatives from SVSU. There's like some of the elementary schools, the middle school, the high school guidance. Even Laura Boudreau attends these committee meetings. There's people from labor, there's people from the community, colleges, there's people from the town. Matt's even attended these meetings as well. But this is all about sort of addressing the gaps and needs in Bennington's workforce. This committee does just an amazing amount of work. We meet once a month. We just had a meeting actually, and it's for about an hour that we meet. And then these little projects form. And then with these projects, people are like, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And then these little subcommittees form. And then all of a sudden this project or event is launched. And then before you know it, we've touched workforce. The whole goal behind this workforce and ed, which labor is heavily involved in, is to really provide a continuum of career exploration from K through adult in Bennington. And the idea is we want people to understand the opportunities that exist here, and that people can make very, very viable career pathways right here in Bennington. And there's a bunch of projects that Aaron.
We'll be quick on this. I think a lot of times, obviously you try to pull people in from elsewhere to enhance your workforce, but then there's looking at your own and developing what's already here. And so in my line of work, we get tired with, like, so many times you hear from the employers, kids don't want to work. The kids are just on their cell phones. They don't care. They don't. It's a lie. I mean, they do. So, Wendy let us start going to the high school every week a couple of years ago, and then we kind of got our foot in the door with guidance. And so we're meeting with students every single Friday who are coming in saying either, hey, I want that high school job now, hey, I'm going to graduate, I don't think I'm ready for college quite yet, or I'm not convinced, I want to work for a few years. What's available to me? Like, those are the conversations that we love having. So from that, my coworker Sean Moran had a great idea, and he just said, what if we just did the high school job fair? We have our normal job fair, which students are more than allowed to come to, but we've decided this year, we've partnered with Mount Anthony Union High School, the Career Development Center, Hoosick Falls, Arlington, Burton, who am I forgetting? There's somebody else. All the area schools are going to bus their students in for a day in May, and we're doing something called Get a Job. So it's a high school hiring event for high school students. And so this is totally, you're an employer, you have a couple needs for the summer, we want you there. You're able to hire a 15-year-old, you're able to hire a 16-year-old. We can help you with all the child labor stuff that you're always worried about. But this event is not necessarily for a career, but it's just so a student can get that initial work experience. They just need to buy some gas, they want to go to the movies, they want to buy a car. The normal reasons teenagers get jobs, this job fair is designed to do that. So we will need employer buy-in. I don't think that's going to be a problem, because a lot of employers remember that they were a kid at one point and they had to get a start, and they know that not all of the jobs that they are offering are the best ones that they have. But we do a great job of explaining to the students that this work experience is invaluable, and that they're going to take so much stuff from this for the rest of their lives. So we're really excited about, it's called Get a Job. We're also working with a group of students called Emerging Leaders. So this is 10th and 11th graders who have some leadership potential that's kind of untapped. And what we do is they go through a class with the Community College Vermont the first semester. We come in, the Department of Labor comes in and assists with resume creation. We have a professional meetup day where each of those students comes to CCV, and we get a group of professionals for the community who comes in to talk about career tracks. So what I tell the kids is this is purely informational. If you come in wanting to be a nurse and you leave wanting to be a nurse, that's wonderful. If you come in and want to be a nurse and leave and not wanting to be a nurse, that's wonderful. This is a place where you're either going to confirm something or you're going to learn something that you didn't know, and then start saying, okay, what's plan B if that's not going to go, because I had all of my eggs in that basket. These are 15, 16-year-olds. We meet them in August, their goal is one thing. By September, it's totally different. And we're cool with that. We just want them exploring, and we're excited about that. At the culmination of the Emerging Leaders program, they get a 40-hour internship at an employer in Bennington County. Employers have been fantastic about offering these internships. And so the students actually leave with a 40-hour internship in a field of their choice. So we're pretty proud of that. The high schools in the area do a great job with Sophomore Summit. Sophomore Summit's an event that takes place every spring where every sophomore in Bennington County attends, well, it's going to be Bennington College this year. And so they do a lot of upfront work, starting to decide on career interests, and then we break them up into panels, groups of about 20, and professionals again from the community come in and explain what work looks like in those fields, in those career pathways. So again, we're trying to expose these folks to as much as they can. So for any of those people who are unsure of what the youth are up to, we're always looking for professionals. We're always looking for businesses to jump in and meet some of these kids. And I'm amazed by them every time, because when I was 16 or 17 years old, I wasn't talking to a professional about hey, if you could have done something differently, how would that have impacted your career? Like, these kids want to work and they want to do well, and that's what makes it so exciting. So I think we need to recognize that we do have a group of people right here that we can train, that we can develop. And my job is to explain to the high school kids that, yes, every 16 or 17-year-old wants to move out of their hometown and try something new. That's not unique to Bennington. It's not because Bennington stinks. It's because this is all you know. Go somewhere else. But remember, you can come back, and there are employers here, and there's money to be made, and there are jobs. So I think we're super passionate about a lot of the things that are happening, because it's not just talk. There are action items, and we want to get going. But we're staring down the clock, and I think we've run over our 1 o'clock thing, so people probably have important stuff to get back to.
Yeah,
but-
just a couple of just quick things, because we would be remiss if we didn't mention the work that we're doing at the middle school level too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we actually have, and so the Workforce and Ed committee quite a few years ago started with what we call April Career Week. And it was sort of a culmination, it was a celebration of all these events, career exploration events that were sort of tied into a 1 week time period, and then media gets on top of it, and you know, there's a lot of it is really publicized in the Bennington Banner. But we found after year one or two, that we couldn't possibly tie all these events into a single week. So now we're sort of April Career Month is coming up, and now it's April Career Month, which is really spilling out now into March and May, which is really great. But you know, watch out for things that are going to happen in the banner, because there'll be special segments in there that will just highlight different career pathways that exist, that are written by people that are right here in the community about their story. That's coming up. But we also have the middle school career fair. So the middle school is really great in pulling together a career fair that they offer in April, tied into April Career Month, and they've got people from the community that go in and they represent certain industry sectors. And Erin and I have done it for years, and the first year we did it, you know, we would say, hey, so what does labor do? And to, you know, a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader that comes up and they're like, you guys do something with babies? And we're like, no, that's them over there. They're the healthcare. You know, we help people find jobs. But it was great. The conversations that we found we were having with a 6th grader is very different than the conversation that we have with an 8th grader. And so the middle school, and Hannah Green has been great, and they've been very accommodating. They actually allow a lot more time for 8th graders to connect specifically to those professionals, with the idea that they're planning their high school academic track at that point. And some of them may have very solid ideas of what they may want to do beyond high school. And again, like Erin said, it might change a million times, but for some people it doesn't. You know, some people figure that out in middle school, and then they go on and, you know, they follow that dream even beyond high school. So, but just wanted to throw that out too with some other great things. But definitely watch out for that stuff in the banner. We also, the select board meeting coming up, we're going to talk about April Career Month, and there's a group of us that will be doing that. So highly encourage you to watch that. And the town of Bennington last year actually signed a proclamation for, which I just think is so cool, for April Career Month, and that will be read as well. So,
Okay.
any questions? I know we went a little bit beyond our time.
And we're always available to have these discussions. I mean, we love to talk more about what's actually happening, because so much is happening, and whatever way we can serve you, especially in the community, we're open to. So.
Yeah, and we thought we were gonna not have enough things to talk about.
I know. I wasn't worried.
I blacked out. I don't even know what happened.
Any questions? And when the cameras go off, you're more than welcome to approach them. I do want to have
Like tigers or something.
Mark come up. Heritage Family Credit Union, this is the 2nd year they've sponsored Lunch and Learns. They help us do the job that we need to do, especially as it's programming and educational for our business members. So just wanted Mark to say 1 or 2 words about all the work that Heritage is doing, and I know they're both working with businesses as well as employers, employees. So you're the right man for Lunch and Learns for sure.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. Thank you so much for a great presentation, another great presentation. Don't forget, when you get your new job, you're going to need a place to do your direct deposit, so come on down to the credit union.
Oh, yes, right?
And also, don't forget to check out hfcuvt.com for employment opportunities from the credit union. We're also always hiring, and it's great to see new employees in the door.
Great. Good. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you again, Wendy and Erin.
Right.